one thing I've been watching, and I think has been very, very interesting, is how the state auditor has been moving to publicize herself and what she's doing as the state auditor, basically campaigning. She is crystal clear in her understanding that she's probably going to face some type of challenge next year. She has said that she's running for re-election, that she's not running for governor. I'm pretty sure that's true. Although, people change their mind. But it's entirely possible, you could definitely envision that the legislators who are not happy with the state auditor, that the legislators find someone to run against her in the primary, right? You could have a primary challenge for state auditor. I think if she runs for your election, I think you can absolutely 100% assume she'll face a primary challenger. At least now, 98% chance she's going to face a primary challenger. What did they call the 24 election? What was that called? Anyone? Bueller? What was it called? I'm pretty sure it was called the podcast election. Here's Pointer. After the first podcast election, the medium is likely to continue playing a role in future campaign cycles. It would be a mistake for future campaigns to ignore or neglect podcasting as a vehicle for their candidates. And then there's a picture of Joe Rogan and President Trump. So I was looking at what Diana DiZoglio has been doing. She just yesterday was on a podcast. She was on a podcast with Toby Leary from Cape Gunworks, RapidFire. And if you go to the stack at massiveuturn.com, you can find the link to it. She was on a podcast, and we're going to bring that up in a second. And this is at least the second hour-long podcast that she's done in the last month. She did the Mike Urban show, which is also an hour-long thing. And she may have done others that I'm not aware of. When it's April of 2025 and you're going to be running in a primary in September of 2026, and this is my advice to anyone running for next year, especially our Republican crop of candidates, and especially our declared candidates, the practice of you going on these podcasts and doing an hour interview is practice. The whole idea that you can sustain a conversation for an hour gets people to know you. But especially this early in the process, it sharpens your skill set as a candidate. Let's hear briefly from Toby and DiZog on yesterday's podcast, Rapid Fire.
Obvious or something, and they need the speaker or the Senate president to help them with their cause. Those folks are not as supportive. You will hear people saying, "Oh, well, I didn't support that," and it's like, well, it's generally speaking, not everybody, but generally speaking, the people that are really strongly opposed to this, like angrily opposed to this, are the ones who are getting something out of it, to be honest, up on the Hill in terms of political influence and, making sure that they are following the lead of the Senate president and speaker and ingratiating themselves to them, and then other people might have voted against this because they thought there was a constitutional issue or something, but you won't see the passion against an audit coming from anybody besides the establishment and their friends who benefit from the establishment. Most people understand that an audit is an audit. And I got to tell you, Toby, at first, when we started first talking about this and they were opposing, I was sitting there essentially and saying, well, some of it could be that they're trying to hide something, but, a lot of this seems like it's just people in power trying to not let go of any power and more of like a pride issue, where well, do you know who they are? They're the speaker, they're the Senate president. They're not going to allow the auditor to come in and do an audit just because of arrogance, right? Now, well, they are really arrogant in what they're doing, and that's true. Now it's gotten to the point, Toby, where I can't believe anymore for a second that it's just about arrogance anymore. At the beginning, I thought it could just be their arrogance, and maybe there isn't anything to hide. Maybe they're just arrogant and prideful, and they don't want to let our office do our job just because they just want to show everybody who's boss. But now, after 72% voted for this, and every single community in the state said yes to question one, that's 351 cities and towns. That's more than 1 million people went out and voted for this. Now, for them to oppose this, when they're not just fighting the auditor anymore, they're fighting their constituents, they're fighting their own residents and their own voters on this. Now, I really do daily wonder, what are you so afraid of? Because
all right, you get the idea. You, after a while, you get to be really hear from the candidate, and of course, she's acting in her official capacity as the state auditor in that interview. But she's obviously running for something next year, probably re-election. She's running for something. This has been such an effective issue for the state auditor, by the way. And I was at a Republican event a couple of weeks ago where the town committee chair brought up all the state elected officials. And then he got to the state auditor, Diana DiZoglio, and he's like, oh, and we got to find somebody to run against Diana. And then he stopped himself and said, well, maybe we don't have to find. He almost endorsed her at a Republican event based upon her record on this one issue, the audit. The simple fact of the matter is you should be aware that Diana DiZoglio is solidly in the Democrat column, except for this one issue relative to the audit, which seems to appeal to a lot of independents and a lot of Republicans. Otherwise, she's a solid Democrat. She's not going to be doing the RFK Jr., Tulsi Gabbard change parties thing. Just get that out of your head. And other than this one issue, she's solidly in the Democrat column, completely. But I think what this goes to show you is that people are looking for people of integrity, and that if you show that you have integrity, they almost don't even care about your platform, because integrity amongst people that we have elected, whether that's Markey or Healy or you name all the crackpots out, is so lacking that they'll take anybody regardless of the platform, as long as you show some integrity. And one of the ways that you can really demonstrate that is by doing these type of long form interviews where people can get to know you, where we just had the podcast election, Trump on Rogan. Trump went on not only Rogan, but he went on if you're running for statewide office or Congress or whatever, you should be on every single podcast you can find. Even if there's only 5 people that listen. That's not the point this early in the game. The point this early in the game is that you get the exercise of getting interviewed. And the point is the clips, right? The clips are the point. The clips are the point. Right? How many people actually listen to the whole, 2+ hour Trump thing on Rogan? I mean, I did, but most people didn't. Most people saw the clips. And so if you're a candidate out there doing a radio interview, for instance, with a Western Massachusetts public radio station, and then you're doing a mainstream interview with, the Herald and John Keller, your media strategy is completely wrong.